Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this video, we have something different for you. We're going to be doing a Dark Souls 3 early game guide, and just to give you a taste, I'm going to show a boss at the beginning here. This is what the build guide is going to end up looking like, and you're going to be able to get to this point probably within an hour or two of starting Dark Souls 3. And what is this going to focus on? This is going to focus on the Pyromancer type build for Dark Souls 3, and we're going to be picking up one of the best weapons in the entire game, one of the most reliable weapons in pretty much any affinity or damage type in the Claymore. And in a second here, we're going to dive in. I'm even going to show you the early game areas and how to cruise through them quickly so you can start to make a build, a really fun build, a build that's going to do a lot of damage as you move through the game. And honestly, it's one you're going to have a blast with too. Whether you're new to Dark Souls 3 or you're a veteran player, this may be one of those builds that you pick up and just have an absolute great time with while also dishing out a good amount of damage. It's exactly what you're going to look for in any playthrough because honestly, fun's a really important part of the game, of course. Second here, we're going to go over the starting class, move forward through Dark Souls 3's first game areas, and go over everything in detail. All right, now for our starting class, this is going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to pick the Pyromancer starting class, and then as our burial gift, we want the Fire Gem. I'm going to explain that in a little bit, but that's going to be our burial gift, and you can customize your character however you like at this point. Make your character look how you want to make your character look, and then we're going to be starting this game and jumping into Dark Souls 3. You're going to start out in the Cemetary of Ash. I want to mention a couple things real quick for Dark Souls 3, especially if you're coming over from Elden Ring and you're unfamiliar with Dark Souls itself. There's a couple things to remember. Enemies will follow you throughout the game more often because the areas are smaller. They also tend to reach out and stretch and hit you more, so be aware of your surroundings in this game more than ever, even more so than a game like Elden Ring. And follow me exactly. We're going to take out some of these basic enemies, and I'm going to show you how to take on the first boss too. And if you haven't experienced it, Dark Souls 3 is probably one of the most fun games you'll ever play. If you've never picked up this game before and you have played Elden Ring and you've been following my channel because I cover a lot of Elden Ring, I recommend picking up Dark Souls 3. You will have an absolute blast with this game, and it is the closest, in my opinion, it's the closest game to Elden Ring of any of the Souls games. By the way, you want to be able to grab this item here past the first bonfire because that is going to be an upgrade material that we'll need later, so make sure you make that jump and grab that item. And we're going to move on to the first boss. That's going to be Gundyr. I believe that's how you say his name. And just follow what I do here. You're going to be able to stack some damage initially after you pull the sword out. That's really important. And then we're going to switch to our fireball. This isn't too bad of a tutorial boss. It really isn't that bad. Again, right here, stack as much damage as you can. You can use your axe, get some hits in. You don't have to waste the fireballs there. And then once he stands up, back up, and now we're going to switch to our ranged attack and try to keep a little distance between us and him because he has some long-reaching attacks. Now, if you're somebody who's good at parrying, you can parry this boss. He's actually not that difficult to parry because his swings are relatively slow. However, you can't do that in Phase 2 once he mutates here, and fire does a lot of damage to this version of the boss, which is going to be a huge bonus for us. We're able to take him out after a quick stun there, and Gundyr goes down. Once again, not a crazy hard tutorial boss. You should be able to get past this. If you use my strategy, keep your distance, and use the fireball, you'll be fine. Right through these doors to the right, and you will end up at the main area, the Firelink Shrine. This is what I'm going to do with my first levels here. Follow on screen. And she is going to be how you upgrade each time in terms of your level, so keep that in mind. And next thing we're going to do is grab our weapon. Go to the bonfire, go to the first area, which is the High Wall of Lothric, and this is where we're going to get the Claymore, one of the best weapons in the game. And now we're at the High Wall of Lothric. As soon as the loading screen is up, probably should have edited that out. We're going to go to the first bonfire here, and then you're going to continue to follow me. We're going to breeze through some of the first areas of the game, open them up, show you how to take on the first boss in a little bit too. He's not too difficult also, and kind of start to build something for you so you can get a decent amount of damage and get a good direction for Dark Souls 3. All right, past the first bonfire, we're going to continue on. Like I said, I am going to run past a lot of the enemies. If you want to fight them and explore, I definitely recommend exploring because there's always items to grab and things you can pick up that are good, and it's good to explore and learn the mechanics. But in terms of directions, I am going to run through most of this, although I did make a small mistake there. I was supposed to jump in the hole. Let's go down this hole and continue on. All right, and make sure you grab some of these items along the way. Extra souls and stuff are important. Big thing here, we're going to go up here because this is going to be where you grab the Claymore. Now, you can mess around with the dragon. There's a couple different ways to do this. I actually made a mistake jumping up there initially, too. But we're going to wait for the dragon to breathe its fire. I'm going to heal through it after I take on this enemy. And then I'm going to grab the Claymore because it's a quick and easy way to get this powerful weapon. And I'm just going to end up, like I said, healing right through it. It's probably the best thing for me. I want to make sure all these enemies are cleared out, though, so I don't get stabbed in the back, because once again, they will follow you and they tend to lunge out a lot. It's going to be on our left side, but we're going to have to go up here on the side, right here, up the stairs. That's the only way to get to it. And I am going to take some damage here, but ultimately I'm going to end up surviving it, grabbing the Claymore, and healing. And of course, now we have one of the best weapons in the game that you could turn into pretty much any awesome build with the Claymore. It truly is a phenomenal weapon with a great moveset and a lot of damage. Now that we're back down the stairs, follow me on screen as we continue on here. All right, we're going to press forward now. Keep following me. We're going to go through the first area. You could roll through this fire, by the way. Just roll 2 or 3 times. You might even be able to do it with 1 roll. I usually do at least 2. Continue on here. We're going to end up going past the knight and press on through the first area. And of course, grab any additional items that you see. Anything that you can pick up, explore if you want. Follow me in terms of where to go, in terms of the direction, how to get to the first boss, and how to press through the first area. But of course, if you want to on your own, just explore as much as you can, because Dark Souls 3 is a phenomenal game. There's a lot to explore, a lot to do, and the more souls you get, the more you can level up. Of course, the more powerful you'll get too. By the way, I'm going to show you how to unlock a shortcut too, and that's going to help you with the first boss as well, because if you end up struggling with the first boss in the game, you could use that shortcut to easily get back to the first boss. Although I will come up with a strategy for you in terms of the first boss, how to get through him, how to face him, how to fight him, and honestly, I really don't think he's that bad, especially if you start as a Pyromancer, which is a powerful class to begin with. Yeah, it really is a great class. A lot of people will tell you early in the game that picking the Pyromancer is one of the easiest ways to go through Dark Souls 3, and I think it is. Having picked this, and then picking up the Claymore, which eventually we're going to use the Fire Gem for, and I will mention what to turn that into later, which will be a Chaos Gem. That will be way later in the game. You're going to end up with a really powerful fire build, and there's not a crazy amount of fire-resistant bosses and enemies in the game, so it's a pretty reliable build too. By the way, when you go down this ladder to the right, I want you to explore this area if possible, because there is an Estus shard in there that's going to increase the amount of flask you have. So you want to go to the right there and grab that. But once you're done doing that, you can go down to this next area here and follow me towards the boss. Again, this is more of a build guide than anything else, but I recommend getting the Estus shard that's to the right of that area. Sure to pick up all the embers that are down here too, because that's going to give you extra HP, and it's kind of like the Great Runes from Elden Ring in terms of HP, kind of like Morgoth's Great Rune, because it's going to ultimately give you more health, and more health's kind of a big deal, especially early on, could help you out a lot, as you can take some extra damage and hits. This is where you unlock the elevator shortcut. Now, when you get to the top of this elevator, when you're at the very top of the elevator, as soon as you go up there, you're going to be back at the starting bonfire area, which means that if you die and you open up this area, you could go back to the first boss again, hence opening up a pretty major shortcut for the first boss. When you go out this door, you'll know where you are, so I'm not going to go over that. Back down the elevator, you're going to go towards the first boss now. So at the bottom of the elevator, follow me again, and we're going to head towards the first boss, and we're going to take him on. And be sure, once again, to pick up any items that are nearby. Explore at your own will, too. If you want to take your time throughout this guide exploring a little bit, too, I highly recommend it. And once again, any extra levels you get that you're not following me in terms of levels, put into Vigor so you end up with more health, because just like Elden Ring or any other Souls game, the more health you get, the more damage you can take. It's the best thing to invest in. Always go with health first. So again, continue following me. I'm going over the entire starting area essentially here. You're going to want to grab the banner here because once Vort is taken down, you're going to need that banner to get to Undead Settlement. That'll be the next area that we'll go to after the first main boss. All right, and we're going to run past these knights. I end up getting hit here. This is an example of how enemies stretch out. I forget that very often in this game, how they can kind of stretch out and hit you, and they typically will follow you, and they'll be very aggressive because the levels are a lot more linear, so it's kind of harder to ditch enemies. Anyways, if you can run past them, run past them. We're going to take on the first boss now. All right, so Vort isn't that challenging. He's not an incredibly difficult boss once you kind of get the flow of the boss here. If you notice, I don't even have any HP, and I was confident going into this fight because generally I don't have a lot of problems with him. We're going to use the fireball from a distance. Keep your distance early on. You can get in several hits and take his HP down a bit. And of course, he will eventually charge you because, as most bosses do, they're not going to let you stand there and hit them as much as you possibly can. But his first phase moveset is relatively slow. However, keep in mind, if you go directly under him, he does have some swings that will hit you while you're under him. So be aware of that and be careful. I kept my distance here and got as many fireballs as I could possibly get in. And for phase 2, he does this 3-charge move. You're going to have to roll through it. It's the best way to go about it. And then when he's done, you want to go behind him so you don't have to deal with this frost breath whatsoever. Get in some hits and then back off and use your fireball again for a good amount of damage. Now, he's much more aggressive in phase 2, and he has a lot of different frost-type attacks. His weapon's actually really good, by the way. I will leave an early game guide for his weapon if you want to check that out for another character in the description below. That's on my other channel, Your Average Variety Gamer. But we took down Vort there. We were able to beat the first boss. This is what I did with the levels here because I want to start to build around being able to use the Claymore that we picked up. All right, after you use the banner, there's a small section of Undead Settlement with a gate. You're going to go through that gate. This is the first bonfire once you're actually in Undead Settlement. You're going to follow me from here, and we're going to continue to press on through Undead Settlement. All right, continue to hit the enemies that are in your way and run past anything else. Again, be aware. They will follow you a lot more, so you're going to have to get used to that. If you have a hard time, you could always stop and fight them, but keep in mind, this area is packed full of enemies, as you can see right here. It's probably best, if you're going to follow me, to run past as many as you can, because otherwise you're going to end up having to fight a lot of enemies. We want to get to the next bonfire, and we want to start to kind of explore this area because there's a ring that I want to pick up that's going to be really important for building. And then, of course, I'm going to show you how to farm Titanite shards, or at least a decent area to get some of them as well, so you could upgrade your Pyromancy and the Claymore as well. By the way, in Dark Souls 3, you're going to see me upgrade, especially early on, to kind of build around being able to use the Claymore as a secondary weapon. You only need the minimum stat requirements for the Claymore, though. After that, you want to focus on Vigor, and then it's going to be Faith and Intelligence are going to be your primary scaling stats for all of the Pyromancy stuff. So you want to get that up higher as you move on through the game, because, of course, this is a beginner's guide, although I'll give you some tips at the end as to what to do later in the game. Yeah, I'll put some stuff in the description, too, that'll help you. That'll basically tell you what to grab and what to look up later in the game and how to continue to build a powerful Pyromancer build. By the way, this is the second bonfire we're going to grab here. We're going to rest here. There's an invasion here. I kind of ignored him. Continue to follow me. Be careful in this next area, though, because there is going to be a giant that is going to shoot, well, basically bolts at you, and it could do a lot of damage and end up disrupting you trying to get to the next area. Do not try to grab these items. You can come back and grab these items later once you make peace with the giant, which is something you could do later in the level, and then come back. He'll actually shoot the enemies for you, which is pretty cool, and you can grab all those items, including an Undead Bone Shard, which will upgrade your flask. All right, continue to follow me, and I want to make note of something as we move up here through the level and we head towards the cliff underside bonfire. To the left here is going to be a tree boss. I want you to grab the next bonfire before ever facing him, but keep in mind that that's there because later on we're going to want to take him on, both for the souls that he gives you and the fact that he allows you to transpose boss souls into basically weapons and whatnot. So he does the transposition or whatever you call it, and you're going to need him if you want to use any boss weapons for the rest of the game. And there's a very, very good pyromancy weapon later in the game that's from a boss. I believe it's from the DLC bosses, though, if you have the DLC as well. That is something that you're definitely going to want to have. So you're going to want to make sure that you take on that tree. And I will show you strategy for that in a little bit, too. All right, so these enemies here, they drop Titanite shards. You could actually farm them for them. I want to get at least 4. You could search the area around you, too. They're spread out through the level in the first area as well. We want to have at least 4 of those so we can get our Claymore to +1 and we can get our Pyromancy to +1 too. And you want to, once again, grab everything in the level that's around you too. I'm going to show you after we grab this bonfire. It's really important to grab this bonfire because there's a pretty good distance between this and the last one. So you want to get to your next save point. So make sure you grab this, and then I'll show you some stuff that's in this general area that we're going to need to pick up, including the ring that we need as well. Yeah, so grab this bonfire, get to that next save point. It always feels good once you have the next save area, right? Because you could just rest here, and then once you have it, if you die, you can come back here. So leaving this area, follow me. We're going to grab our friend first, the Pyromancy guy. He's going to be able to upgrade your Pyromancy Flame, and he can also sell you a couple different I guess they're called pyromancies. But anyways, he'll sell you a few of them. You can give him tomes to get more as well. And he even has one to start with that's actually pretty good that I like in Great Combustion. So, of course, get him to come back to our Firelink Shrine so that he's there. And once he's there, you're good. He'll stay there. He's not like the mage in this game that disappears after a while. I believe he's pretty much always there, which is pretty awesome. Now, jump down, go past this little thing that we saw before. You're going to grab the ring right here. It's going to be the Fire Clutch ring. It's not far from that bonfire either. You could just jump down after that and grab it. Now, we are going to upgrade the Claymore to +1. And after this, of course, we're going to be upgrading Pyromancy as well. If you're confused as to where I am, I'm at the Smither at the Firelink Shrine, which is the main hub area from the game, and that's how you basically upgrade anything in the game in terms of your weapons, aside from the Pyromancy stuff, which we picked up the specific guy for. He's to the right of the Smither. We're going to upgrade our Pyromancy Flame, and then we're going to end up buying that one that I mentioned before, too, in Great Combustion. By the way, you'll need about 4,000 to 5,000 souls, so you could farm some of those enemies in the area of that last bonfire if need be. Probably get about 600 each run there. We're going to grab Great Combustion right there. That's going to be basically Catch Flame from Elden Ring, except even bigger, which is awesome. It does a good amount of damage, and it's relatively quick, too. Now we're going to make a run from that last bonfire that we're at to the next area, which is the elevator. And that's going to help you move on and follow me here. We're going to run past a lot of enemies. They will follow you. 2 of the bigger enemies you may have to take on because sometimes they will follow you through the door up here. But there's so many enemies in this area. Actually, just the first time I died was right here. You're going to go past this the best you can because you probably won't have to deal with all these. There's a lot of enemies in this section. And we want to get to this next elevator because it's going to get you to the next sections and the next several areas of the game. I'm going to go over some of them a little bit briefly, but basically at this point, we're kind of making our beginner build here. You're going to get more Titanite shards as you go. Continue to upgrade your Pyromancy, of course, and your Claymore as well. All right, so this elevator, by the way, it has a quest with it in Sigurd. He's an amazing NPC, one of the best NPCs in the entire Souls game. If you go to the top, by the way, you can make peace with the giant there. Definitely do that. If you jump off here, you could do a side quest. I recommend doing this and taking on the demon that's down there. Even with the Claymore, it's not too bad. It does a decent amount of damage to him. He's probably only about 10, 12 swings. It's really not bad at all. You want to help him continue that quest because it's one of the best quests in Dark Souls. And then, of course, the bottom of the elevator is where we want to end up because that's going to be the next bonfire. Basically, the bottom here is going to open up and give you the whole next section of the game. Now, we will have to go back for one thing. I'll show you the strategy for the tree. I pointed him out before if you remember where he is, so you could take him on as well because it's important to take him down. By the way, this random enemy here, he drops one of the best weapons in the game in the Ithral Straight Sword. Definitely something worth checking out eventually too, but not really fitting for our awesome Pyromancy build here that you want to continue to move and build on. Honestly, Pyromancy, one of the most fun ways to play Dark Souls. This is what I did with my next levels. Now I can single-hand the Claymore. After this, I'm going to focus on Attunement as well as Vigor health. All right, I want to show this real quick. Remember the bonfire that's near the dilapidated bridge? I believe that's what it's called at least. You're going to go back here once you make peace with the giant because you want to grab all of the items that are in this area. And then most importantly, you're going to want your first undead bone shard. I think that's the first one if I'm correct, if I remember right. Anyways, it's going to upgrade your flask, which is really important. So you have that extra flask that I pointed out earlier, and then you have the undead bone shard to get your flask to +1 as well. By the way, jumping back and playing this, it was so much fun. Dark Souls 3 is such a good game. You forget how fun this game is and how much of a great game it is. Yes, it's not the size of Elden Ring, and yeah, it is an 8-year-old game, but it is an amazing game. It's honestly so much fun going back and playing this. Dark Souls 3 is one of my favorite games, no question. All right, so we're going to go back here to that bonfire that was Cliff Underside, and we're going to head to fight the tree. I'm going to show my strategy for the tree because this is a boss that you want to take down. Because later on, if you have the DLC, it's going to be pretty late game because I believe you get it from fighting the Twin Princes, Twin Demon boss fights, and it's the Demon Scar, I believe it's called. That's going to be an amazing Faith and Intelligence Pyromancy weapon that does pure fire damage. Definitely worth picking up later on, and that's going to be from one of the DLC bosses. I believe it's the Twin Prince boss fight, though. It's the two demons you have to face. There's actually a summon for that fight. I think you could actually summon 2 different NPCs for that fight, but it's best to summon one. Anyways, that's way later in the game. Let's show the strategy for the tree here. You have to destroy these sacks that are on the tree. That's really the only way to take him down, other than his hand in phase 2, but that's kind of dangerous. So follow my lead. We're going to take as many of these out as we possibly can and take him down quickly. So after you destroy 2 of the sacks that are on him, he's going to break the floor below him and fall down. You're not going to take any damage. This is a natural part of the fight. After this, he's going to have a hand that's kind of obnoxious. I do get hit by it. I think grab by it once. The grab does a lot of damage, so be aware of that. You're going to continue to focus on the sacks. He has ones on his arms, his backs, below him in the front, pretty much all over. You can see them, and it's really the only way to get good damage on him. One thing to mention, by the way, is the Fire Clutch Ring increases your damage by 15%, sorry, but you take an increase of 10% damage. It's a lot like the Fire Scorpion Charm from Elden Ring. It's like Dark Souls 3's version of it, which is first, of course. But anyways, the more to the point, you're going to take an increased amount of damage. There is I believe it's the Chainmail armor at the Firelink Shrine, and you can grab that to get in some decent defense. I will show you here shortly another armor set I really like that's relatively early that you can grab too. But if you're struggling a little bit with that extra damage, be sure to pick up that armor set at the Firelink Shrine or find one so you can get a little defense. Every time I go to say Firelink Shrine, I almost say Round Table Hold, so apologies there. It literally almost comes out of my mouth every time because I cover so much Elden Ring that I'm used to it. But yeah, Firelink Shrine was first. Let's remember that. Awesome, though, that you can grab the armor set there. It will help you with the increased damage. Take all the sacks down, take this tree down, and you will get the transposing kill. Next couple levels, I'll show you what I ended up doing with it. I ended up getting to around 15 Vigor and I think 14 Attunement here in a second. I do end up using this one more time because I had some souls on me, and I got to 14 Attunement. That's going to give me a second slot at 14, so I can now use 2 different pyromancies equipped, which is pretty cool. I'm going to speed through some of these next areas. After you go through the next area, you'll end up in this middle section with a ladder and 2 NPC enemies that are relatively tough. I'm just skipping around now just to kind of give you an idea of where to head in the future. You're going to grab this armor set that's right out front of this area because it's a really good armor set and it's going to give you some decent defense and cancel out some of that extra damage from the Fire Clutch Ring. And from the same area, you're going to follow me on screen. Be aware there's a giant crab out here. I took him down first. Be aware of him because he will hit you multiple times and he takes a lot of fire damage. You're going to go here and you're going to grab your first Pyromancy Tome. This is going to add more to basically what you can buy from your Pyromancer friend. And it's really important to hand these in, which we're going to do right here. And we're going to get the upgrade for Fireball. Ultimately, a really important grab, and later on you'll get great Chaos Fireball or something, and then Chaos Bed Vestiges. There's some really great ones later on that you're going to be able to grab, and you'll do massive damage. By the way, continue to get Titanite Shards. Get your weapon, your Claymore to +2 or +3, and your Pyromancy to that as well, and you'll be able to do some great damage. I had mine at +2 at the beginning clip. Thanks for watching this one. I hope I helped you start out in Dark Souls 3 pretty powerful and at least headed you into the right direction and made a fun and strong build for you. Want to see more beginner guides or Dark Souls 3 guides, be sure to comment below. If you have any thoughts, be sure to comment them as well. I will catch you guys in the next video.